the resurrection burial tomb. All right, like what the hell is that? What is this, right? And so it's the inventor is Daniel Izzo. Okay, that's fine, right? So the abstract reads exactly like this. A resurrection burial tomb includes a means to preserve and revive human beings and provide power and power systems for the same, comprising of a container of preservation means holding the suspended dead person's body and connected to electrical and energy apparatus systems contained in the resurrection tomb and robotic machine workers that help maintain and work to revive the suspended human being, wherein the process provides power and security from death to living human beings being useful and novel, producing a less savage, empowered child culture and machine parents. Now, not only is that a nice abstract for a patent, it's a little abstract in and of itself. I was like, what? What the hell is he talking about? What is this? But basically, he's got all manner of sketches and things here. I was going through the patent myself, and it is pages and pages and pages and pages of absolutely wild stuff. I couldn't believe it. And here's, let's see, again, links are going to be in the description down below, but here's, I got down to about this far, but he's got just sketches and ideas and basically what he's talking about. So the base part of this is he's describing when a person dies and the soul itself leaves the body, you're left with the shell. Okay. And so what he's describing is using some sort of means of energy to kind of pump through the body to keep it alive or keep it, let's say, preserved enough with the energy flow to recapture the soul at some point, okay, as some sort of, actual ritual sort of resurrection, which again is very creepy. And if you're going to think of it in terms of science, like this guy he's still alive. And I did check, he's got a Twitter X account if you want to follow him. You can find him at Daniel Izzo1. Daniel, just like it sounds, IZZO1. And he's got a tweet here. Let me read this. He's got a post. This is from not too long ago. This was from August 25th, 2024. But he says this: many people across various faiths hold a belief in the possibility of resurrection or a need for security in the face of death. Given this, do you think it would be wise to consider methods of preserving the bodies of soldiers who die on the battlefield or in civilian life in a way that could potentially enable a medical resurrection through science rather than relying on faith alone? After all, isn't one of the reasons radical Islamists, and this is his tweet, not mine, are fighting us in their belief in being rewarded in an afterlife, which interestingly echoes an idea that we were talking about recently. If you remember that show we did on the celestial reward and all the rest of that, okay? And so the patent's wild stuff. Like I said, if you want to dig into it, it is pages and pages and pages and pages, and it is a portable nuclear-powered engine that's supposed to be able to do this somehow that works into this. If you're watching on the stream here, and it's talking about even like embryos, and look, I got lost. I was trying to read this. I was trying to follow along with what this guy was actually talking about. I was lost by like page 4. I'm like, what the hell is this? What are we even talking about? And again, I'm not saying that just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's not real. Okay, who knows? That's exactly the point here. And this is why we talk about these ideas, because what the hell? And so, of course, it brought to mind to me many things. And specifically and directly, when you think of a soul sort of leaving the body, and then him keeping the body warm in some capacity for the soul to return, then, well, what is this whole thing? And this is the whole point of soul stealing. So if your soul leaves, and there's something called a walk-in, shout out to Robert if he's out there over on Rockfin. He's dropped the Yo Robert before he drops in here. But basically, he brought this up a long time ago, the idea of a walk-in. And when somebody is sort of on their deathbed, passing away, in just that moment when the soul leaves the body, they're susceptible, because the body is still alive, still very, very perceptive to energy still, because energy is still flowing through it, to a walk-in of a soul of sorts, of some other entity waiting for a vessel to inhabit, okay? And it's an old idea. It's absolutely wild and all the rest of that stuff, okay? And but the let's say really wild part of it about it when you think about it is that, can this be forced? Can you, again, not just steal the soul, sort of force a soul out of a body and then maybe force something else in. And this has, of course, been one of those things that goes back for a very, very long time. We'll talk about some of the different ways. And even if you look at, well, we'll get to that after the break, but there's a lot of ways to consider this. And so the question tonight is, number one, do you think a patent like this, where they're literally talking about keeping the body warm for the soul to return at some point, you think that's possible? Does that sound possible to you at all? That's the first question. Second, what about the actual leaving of the soul? Is there a way to keep the body warm so it does come back? And can you force it out? Can you actually steal a soul from a body and, let's say, empty it for the invasion of something else? And this has been, the alchemist stuff for a very long time, like I said. And that's what's on my mind tonight. We're going to get into the different ways here, some of the mythology and folklore as part of it, demons and whatnot, exactly. And there's a lot to this, but it's also a technological thing, not just with the patent as described, but also it gets weird when you start to think about the modern version of the internet and sort of metadata as your soul itself. So we'll get into some other wild ideas as part of it, but that's puts us exactly where we need to be. If you want to be part of the show tonight, we are taking your calls at 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubleminds.org. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because this is definitely a wild one. And so basically, that's why I didn't have the thing pumped all the way up. Sorry about that. If I was a little quiet, I shouldn't be anymore. But so the question is, well, is it possible to force a walk in and force a walk out and keep a body warm for the soul 10 years later or something? Super weird. Here's the deal, right? There's a lot of ways to consider this. And I was thinking about it, not just with the succubus, the incubus, and sort of the idea of forcing a soul or sort of fostering a soul for a long time and then stealing it, snatching it out sort of in a demonic sense. But also there's other mythology and folklore that goes back a long way, right? Specifically, let's see. Hold on, I got too much stuff here. Okay, so I'm going to go from memory on this one. So think about it that way. So we'll start in the primordial days of folklore and mythology with sort of just the idea of demons trying to steal the soul. Okay, the pact, the Faustian pact, that whole bit, right? But then also, if you think of it in sort of a more semi-modern term around the, let's say, invent of actual photography, there are some cultures in the world that were very wary of it, very fearful, which is an interesting thing, by the way, regarding actual technology, is that we seem to have as humans this really deep-seated fear of what technology will bring, because it is sort of a way to replace the natural order in a lot of ways. And we had a show on the natural order a few weeks back. But it definitely kind of gives you the creeps, right? Like I've talked to normies specifically about AI. I'm out there just in the, doing what I do on a daily basis. The topic comes up, some people are talking about this or that. I mention AI, and people say, and this is a quote from somebody, yeah, you know what, man, AI really freaks me out. Like I'm not even sure what to make of it. It just kind of gives me the willies. It's just there's your ontological shock, right, of the UFO community. But in this case, like people are recognizing out there that there's something happening that is very, very, very odd about all of this technological space. Now, again, back to these native tribes that were in many places. I can't remember exactly where it was. I had all this stuff pulled up, but I've just got too much stuff to. So, like I said, I'm going to just hip shoot this. But all the links are in the description down below if you want to correct me or whatnot. And I'm always willing to be corrected, because I can't possibly know everything. That would be ridiculous. But there were some actual tribes in different places around the world that were terrified that when you took their photograph, when in the infancy of the actual photograph itself, the technology, they thought that you would steal their souls as part of it, right? Because you could take the photograph and then show it to them, and they would think that it removed part of them and actually imprinted it into the paper. And there is a fictional aspect of that, a pop culture aspect. We talked about this a few times on the show, but previously as well. But sort of taking those three bad guys from Superman, you guys remember that, where they imprisoned them in that pane of glass and then sent them out into the galaxy or whatever, and they were just kind of floating free form, and who knows what would happen until, of course, it exploded and they were set free. That explosion set them free. But that type of idea, right, where you actually take the souls and you capture a part of it, and you're able to keep it in a slice of, well, in this case, paper, or whatever the film was they were using way back when they started the photography stuff. And so It's weird, right? It's a weird thing. But then when you get into the new space and you're like, okay, so, that makes some sense. You got the demon stuff, the demonic stuff. You got the walk-ins. Is it possible to force a soul out in any capacity other than, clearly the old-fashioned way, like they would have done in the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages? They would have just killed you to force the soul out, right? I'm not talking about that. And of course, I don't condone violence in any capacity whatsoever, so don't get me wrong. You got to say, you got haters out there. But, okay, so then back to this. So then we have the weird aspect of not just technology being a sort of a creeping nightmare in the back of our minds. We also have the new space of the technological soul, and we call it consciousness, okay? Which in this case, there are technocrats currently, very, very rich and powerful people that are trying to create a way to upload our consciousness to this machine. Okay, to these AI systems, and and we've talked about this at length in the past. That is that even us? Is it a replication of us? Is it a poor facsimile? Is it real? Is it what would that look like? I mean, there's a lot there, but recognize that these same ideas persist, even with this bizarre patent. Again, back to this patent called a resurrection burial tomb. Like, what the hell is that? But then think about the implications. If you could keep a body warm, a vessel warm, and put it in some pod somewhere, and kind of keep electricity flowing through it, through these big, tiny nuclear reactors, and that's basically as far as I got is in understanding this. But imagine if you could, and so their soul's gone, it's doing whatever it does, going wherever it has to be, going home, as they say. Is it possible to reunite? Is there a reunification of soul and body in this context? And I wonder, and if you're, imagine this now in a sci-fi future, kind of like the Matrix, right? Where you have all of these pods and these people have the thing plugged into the back of their neck, and they're being used as energy for the AI systems, and the architect, and powering the Matrix, and they're in the Matrix, and it's this weird thing, okay? Except imagine if it's not that at all. In this case, this technology that he's describing in the patent, like I said, I don't know if it works or not. Of course, this would take some testing that's probably illegal. But instead of that, you have these pods with people in them being kept warm for souls to enter, for their soul to eventually return when we have that technology to find their soul, find said soul from purgatory or wherever it ended up, Sheol or what. You tell me, wherever you think the souls go, from the source or whatever, heaven, hell, you tell me. There's a billion ideas, but able to reunite it with the body at some point. Now, the creepy part to me is if that's the case in any capacity, that you could sort of keep a body warm to re-invite a soul, then do we have, I don't know, like a sea of vessels waiting for, we are legion to just kind of pop into our reality? And we're like, thanks, guys. Appreciate that very much. You know what I mean? Like, that's the type of thing that kind of makes me wonder, like, whoa, wait a minute now. What are we doing here? Like, what's the point of this? And by the way, not to, me, I don't like to cast shade on religions in any capacity whatsoever, okay? That's not what I'm trying to do. But when I was going through this, okay, I did recognize that this individual, his name is Daniel Izzo, that has this actual resurrection burial tomb. He is what is he? He's let's see. Does it say it? No, he's some sort of religious person. He's a pastor or he's a something. Let's see. What is it? Where is it? It's like I said, so much information here. It's a lot of stuff. There you go. Daniel Robert Izzo. He's in Syracuse, New York. There it is. Reverend Daniel Robert Izzo. So yeah, he's a reverend. I mean, what does that mean? What denomination is that? Like, I'm such a knucklehead with that stuff. I don't know what it means, but I'm smart enough to recognize it is a religious designation of said, something in the hierarchy. Okay. So it made me go, wait a minute. Now, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And I get that we want to take sort of the science of the soul and move it into the next space, the next technological space, whatever that means. But do you think it is possible then to force the soul out? Because the next couple questions come as part of it, right? Let's say that if you can keep a body warm, and after the soul is left, it's passed on technically, and now you're pumping energy through the body and keeping it warm for a soul to come back in, then is it also possible to kind of force a soul out? You're like, okay, we're done with you. Bam, you're out with some new technology or old technology, old spellcraft or something, old alchemy. And then with the same thing, kind of keep it keep it locked off, keep the body in an encryption phase where even the soul you cast out cannot come back. You see what I mean? So we start to have these problems, these very, very philosophically icky problems when you start to think about this technology, because what does that mean? But then, of course, imagine, so if you can cast a soul out of a body, keep the body warm so it can take a soul back, but then you encrypt that designation, that space where it does come back, and then you can only invite the souls you want. You get it? So you start kind of skipping souls, and you're like, okay, I kind of like that body, which, by the way, brings up one of the Anne Rice books, if you guys have read Anne Rice, which is fantastic, called Tale of the Body Thief. Yeah, pretty wild stuff. I didn't even think about that till right now. But here's the other part. So if you can cast a soul out, okay, if you can do that, and you can keep a body warm to bring a soul back in, is it possible then to also, when you cast said soul out, or soul leaves naturally, whatever, is it possible to delete the soul? To delete it from history entirely, so that you just have a warm vessel waiting to come, well, for whatever is there. And again, to me, like I said, it's incredibly creepy, because this is not just the Golem of old. This is Frankenstein. This is all of these ideas mixed together. And of course, the same thing applies when you start to talk about the digital afterlife and the consciousness of people being uploaded into machines. We're talking about a very similar thing here. And, well, where does all the technology come together? And the other part, we'll get to the other part because we're just about out of time here at the bottom of the hour. But the other part, Kelly dropped in the chat, again, in the Discord. If you guys haven't joined the Discord, you're missing out. Some of you missed Daryl's karaoke session over the last couple of days. So check that out, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. Come say hi. Come meet all these amazing people that are active on the show and active on the Discord. But, yeah, so Kelly dropped one in there. Ricky dropped one in there, and it manifested in this show tonight, because I think there's a lot of wild ideas. But what do you guys know about it? What do you know about the idea of, let's say, forcing a soul out, and maybe keeping it out, and maybe deleting a soul, or let's say the modern consciousness aspect of it, or, well, I don't know. Where do we sit? It becomes the question, because all of this stuff, like I said, is definitely troubling and very worthy of a Troubled Mind style discussion. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Modern soul stealing, I'm calling this. Ritual tech and the spirit market. We'll get to that as we go. But what do you think? Does this technology sound real? Does it sound plausible? By the way, I'll tell you, I asked the new AI, the latest smart AI system, if this technology was plausible. I'll tell you what it said when we come back. Tonight we're talking modern soul stealing. Now, this goes back a long way. The idea of demons stealing souls in your dreams, the succubus, the incubus, that bit. And again, like I said, sort of different native tribes being fearful of technology. And the photograph, the invention of the photograph, thinking, would take a piece of their soul away if you took a picture of them. Hey, if there was any truth to that, and I'm not saying there isn't, by the way, you know me, I try to be as agnostic as possible in all the ways, because you never know. Maybe there's some really, really amazing wisdom in the old ways that we're missing. And think of it just as a thought experiment. So what if that idea of taking a picture of somebody actually did remove a portion of them somehow, as a facsimile, as a replica, it took part of your essence. Think of all the selfies and all the stuff going on. Would it explain the debasement of modern society? Maybe. I'm just saying, thought experiment. Don't kill the messenger here. I'm just, let's think about it. But anyway, wild stuff is part of this. And we have this bizarre patent, shout out Ricky for dropping this in the Discord yesterday or the day before, called a resurrection burial tomb. And the essence is it's supposed to keep a passed on body warm for the return of a soul, right? Just saying. I'm just saying. It's, does it seem real to you? Oh, and so I did ask the AI. I teased what the AI told me regarding this technology. Okay, now I did. So if you guys know, if you've been paying any attention, and you've listened to me in any capacity whatsoever, then you would know that there is a new Chat GPT that is supposed to be strawberry, right, and all the rest of that stuff that we've talked about, have this higher reasoning function. And I asked it. So before we started tonight, I threw that the actual resurrection burial tomb patent in there. And I asked it, hey, do you think that this is, real? Because could this technology actually be possible? Hold on, let me find it. Here you go. All right, there you go. And this is what it said. This is wild. It thought for 8 seconds. It's wild if you watch this new thing kind of thing. It's thinking, it's parsing information, it's doing its thing. And it said this: the patent, which is US 200500273 16A1 316A1, describes a technology for transmitting power and data through the human body. This concept leverages the body's natural conductive properties to enable communication and energy transfer between devices worn or carried by a person. And here you go. Considering this as a real technology is plausible, says this new AI system. Similar ideas have been explored in the field of intra-body communication, where the body serves as a transmission medium for electrical signals. For instance, some biometric devices are wearable electronics use the body's conductivity to monitor health metrics or facilitate secure data exchange. So it's got some benefits and some drawbacks, of course: safety concerns, signal degradation, regulatory hurdles, all the stuff you would expect, enhanced wearability. But it doesn't talk about the soul at all, because it's acting like a scientist. It's like, let me put my scientist hat on. So it's not going to tackle that. But it says that the actual technology itself, as described in this resurrection burial tomb, is, quote, plausible. Wild, right? Love to hear what you think. So the question tonight, of course, is what about this soul stealing? This has been an idea for a very long time. And is it possible to steal a soul? Number two, is it possible to keep a body warm to put a soul back in? And what happens to the soul in between? And all manner of different things, the consciousness aspect. We can get to technology, and we'll get to the digital soul a little bit later. But wild stuff, and we'll get to, again, the link that Kelly shared, which fits into the Superman bit, by the way. If you guys saw this on Interesting Engineering, we'll get back to this. But indestructible 5D memory crystals to store humanity's genome for billions of years. Seems fine. What is our genome in some capacity? Our actual personal DNA, is that linked to our soul somehow? Like our source code, like we said so long ago? I don't know.